Welcome back to Rooted in Relationship, the podcast for parents who've tried all the charts, all the consequences, all the reward systems, and found themselves asking, why isn't this working? I'm so glad you're here. So, today's episode is called When You Don't Like Who You're Becoming as a Parent. And I want to talk about why I chose that title because I think it might be the most important thing we talk about. Have you ever had that moment? Maybe it's after you've yelled or after you've given a consequence you didn't even believe in, or after you've spent an entire evening locked in a power struggle where you catch yourself and think, this isn't who I want to be. This isn't the parent I'd imagined I'd become. Maybe you feel it as shame or exhaustion. Maybe it's this quiet grief for the relationship you thought you'd have with your child. I hear from parents all the time saying things like, I never wanted to be a yeller, but here I am yelling. Or I spend more time managing, correcting than I do actually enjoying my kid. Or I feel like we're on opposite teams instead of the same one. And here's what breaks my heart. Most of these parents are trying so hard. They're reading the books, they're implementing the strategies, they're doing everything they've been told to do, and it's not working. And worse, it's turning them into someone they don't recognize. If that's you, I want you to hear me. You are not the problem, and your child is not the problem. The approach is the problem. Because most of what we've been taught about parenting is built on a fundamental misunderstanding of how children actually develop and how change actually happens. And today, I want to share some science with you that I believe will change a lot of things, not because it gives you a new technique, but because it shows you why the techniques keep failing and what actually matters instead. So here's the headline. What matters most isn't what you do or say, it's who you are when you're with your child. It's the quality of your presence. And when you understand why that's true and at the level of the brain, I think you'll finally be able to let go of the guilt, stop chasing these strategies that aren't working and come home to the parent you actually want to be. Stay with me. So let me tell you about something that's been revolutionizing our understanding of human development and relationships. Scientists have developed what they call hyperscanning technologies, ways to measure two brains simultaneously while they're interacting in real time. And what they're discovering or what they've discovered is really extraordinary. And it's terrible that not the, that we all don't know about this, guys. I mean, it's just amazing, so powerful. So when two people are in genuine emotional connection, like a mom with her baby, right? Or a coach and her client, or a therapist and her patient, the right hemispheres actually synchronize. They align. They begin to dance together in a rhythm that happens in milliseconds, completely beneath conscious awareness. Let me say that again because I want it to really sink in. Your brain and your child's brain are literally synchronizing when you're emotionally present with them. Not when you're lecturing, not when you're managing behavior, when you're present, when you're attuned, when you show up with your whole heart. Researcher Alan Shore, whose work I've been recently reading in a reading group, he calls this right brain to right brain communication. And here's what makes this so powerful. The right hemisphere is dominant in the first years of life. It's the hemisphere that processes emotion. It reads faces and voices. It handles nonverbal communication. And here's the crucial part. It's the hemisphere where our sense of self first forms. So when we talk about a child's developing brain being shaped by their early experiences, we're not talking about the lessons we teach them or the rules we set. We're talking about this invisible, moment to moment emotional dance, the tone of your voice, the warmth in your eyes, the way your body relaxes or tenses when you're with them. This is why your presence matters so much more than your techniques. Your child's brain is literally being shaped by how you show up, not what you say, but how you say it, not what you do, but who you are when you do it. And this, my friends, this is why you don't like who you're becoming. Because when you're stuck in management mode, correcting, controlling, consequencing, punishing, you're not present. You're not attuned. You're operating from your stressed out left brain, trying to fix and manage while your child's right brain is desperately searching for connection and finding it's what is it finding? It's finding tension and control and disconnection. But it's in its little search. It's like its little Google search is spinning around looking and looking for that connection, that safety, that part of you that can understand them, come alongside them, all these wonderful things we're striving for. And they're finding tension and control and disconnection when they land. Your child isn't receiving your words. They're receiving your state. And when your state is frustrated, anxious, depleted, that's what their brain is synchronizing with. That's what's shaping their interaction. No wonder it feels like you're both losing. Now, here's where this gets even more interesting and honestly really hopeful. For a long time, psychology operated from what's called a one-person psychology. The focus was on the individual, their thoughts, their behaviors, their internal processes. If a child was struggling, we would ask, what's wrong with this child? What's wrong with this kid? What do we need to fix in them? But neuroscience is now confirming what Dr. Gordon Neufeld has been teaching for decades, and what I have come to understand so deeply in my own journey. We need a two-person psychology because the self doesn't develop in an isolation. As Shore writes, quote, the self-organization of the developing brain occurs in the context of a relationship with another brain, another self. So did you catch that? Your child's brain is organizing itself in the context of relationship with you, not just learning from you, actually organizing itself through connection with you. This is why behavior management approaches so often fall flat. They're operating from that one person psychology. They're asking, how do I get this child to change their behavior? But the brain doesn't work that way, especially the developing brain. The brain changes in the context of relationship. It organizes in the context of safety. It grows in the context of emotional attunement. So when your child is struggling, whether it's tantrums or defiance, anxiety, right, shutting down, the question isn't what consequence should I use? The question is, what is the state of our relationship? Am I a person my child can rest in? Do they feel held by me, not just physically, but emotionally? And here's where I want to offer you some grace. You've been stuck in that management mode. And it's not because you're a bad parent. No, it's because that's what our culture is teaching. That's what most parenting advice is built on. Control the behavior, manage the child. But that approach doesn't account for the relationship. It doesn't account for your presence. And so it keeps failing and you keep feeling like a failure. You're not a failure. You've just been given the wrong map. I want to pause here and I think get a little personal with you because this science touches something deep in me, something that shapes a lot about how I approach this work. When I first encountered this kind of research through Neufeld about brain synchronizing, I read The Awakened Brain by Lisa Miller. She talks about this as well. And it's now with Alan Shore. So about this invisible dance of emotional communication happening beneath words. I actually just get tears in my eyes when I think about this because it feels like science is finally catching up to something so many humans we know we already sensed was true. That presence, it's not passive. Showing up, really showing up, is doing something profound. So I'm a Baha'i, and I sometimes talk about my faith on this podcast, but it's so woven into who I am. I want you to know this little part of me, which is actually a big part. One of the core beliefs in my faith, and so many faiths, right, is that human beings are fundamentally spiritual beings, that there's a sacred reality to each person that goes beyond the physical, right? We feel this, we know this. This is aligned with all the world's religions. And we have this beautiful teaching in the Baha'i faith that every child should be regarded as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. A mine like a cave, not a mind, but a mine. So regard this child as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. Here's why I'm starting, like, why am I sharing that? Okay, that teaching has always guided how I see children, not as problems to be solved or behaviors to be managed, but as beings already rich with potential, already whole in their essence. Our job isn't to put the gems in, our job is to create the conditions in which those gems can emerge and shine. And when I read this neuroscience about how the relational environment literally shapes the developing brain, I see exactly what those conditions are. It's not programs, it's not curriculum, it's not the right discipline strategy. It's the quality of presence. It's the emotional soil we create through our own inner state when we're with our children. So this is why I am now calling this, and I'll share more at the very end of this podcast about this, but this is why I call it a parenting practice, not parenting techniques or parenting methods. Because, like any practice, a spiritual practice, a physical practice, a creative practice, it's about who we're becoming. It's about tending to our own inner life so that what flows out of us when we're with our kids is something they can actually rest in. And honestly, that reframe is so huge for me, and reminds me, especially as I work with parents and we get stuck together and thinking like, oh gosh, this behavior is so hard. Right, but I constantly come back to, we can take the pressure off getting this right in every moment, and it invites me, and I hope it invites you into something deeper, a continuous practice of showing up, reconnecting, and trusting that your presence itself is doing the sacred work. Okay, so I know what you might be thinking. This is beautiful and profound, really, but what do I actually do with this? So many of you are like, hey, my kid is throwing their dinner on the floor, girl, or they're screaming that they hate me. Fair question. So let me get practical. First, I want you to understand that this research isn't telling you to be perfect. It's not saying you need to be in a state of blissful attunement 24/7. That's not realistic. And actually, that's not even good for development. Ruptures happen, disconnection happens. What matters is the repair, the coming back together. But here's what this science is telling us. One, how you arrive matters more than what you say. Before you address behavior, check in with yourself. What's the state of your own nervous system? Are you regulated? Because your child's right brain is reading your right brain faster than words can travel. If you're coming in hot, frustrated, dysregulated, and anxious, that's what they're receiving, regardless of how calm your words are, right? Oh my gosh, it's like, oh, so fascinating. So, number two, connect before you direct. Always, every time. Dr. Neufeld talks about the importance of collecting our child. You're collecting their attachment instincts to you by drawing them close, making that eye contact, or if they're a child who that's threatening, we can get their ears, getting a nod, getting a smile. Collect these things. This is what you're collecting. You're collecting the eyes or the ears, the nod, the smile, okay, before you ask anything of them. That gives you this working relationship before you say anything. We tend to really not get this, guys. And so we do a lot of directing and instructing without ever collecting this child, without ever having a real working relation. We talk to the back of their head, we yell from another room, we repeat ourselves because we don't feel heard. We aren't collecting. We're not doing this work. This isn't just good parenting advice. It's neuroscience. You're synchronizing your right hemispheres. You're creating the relational context in which their brain can actually receive what you're offering. Okay, number three, your relationship is the intervention. When you're feeling stuck, when nothing seems to be working, stop trying to fix the behavior. Start investing in the relationship because the behavior is usually just a symptom, right? We've talked about that. Relationship is the soil. Tend to the soil. And it goes to the fact that here you are, you're stuck, the child is stuck, they're not listening, or whatever you're finding is the power struggle. You want to immediately just go to that place of like, this is, wow, we're really having a hard moment here. Just kind of talk about the elephant in the room. Number four, this starts from birth. The research here is clear. So these right brain to right brain communications are happening from the beginning of life. Those early months and years when it feels like all you're doing is feeding and changing diapers and surviving on no sleep, you're actually engaged in the most important developmental work. You're building the relational architecture that will shape your child's brain and their capacity for connection for the rest of their life. That's really big. And I'm not going to get into the weeds here with you, but if we really understood this, can we just establish like that really helps us to understand some decision making that needs to happen when we have a baby and really puts the focus on this child's brain and the foundation for their emotional health. So let's pause there and think about that. So I want to just zoom out for a moment because I think this science, it has implications far beyond our individual families. We're living in a world that's hungry for connection. We're more technologically connected than ever, and yet loneliness and disconnection are epidemic, and health challenges are rising in every generation. We're struggling to understand each other, to see each other, to feel truly known. And yet, here's this research showing us that our brains are literally built to synchronize with each other. We're designed for deep connection. We have the neural hardware for emotional attunement already installed. It's part of who we are as human beings. So, what if the work we're doing in our homes, this work of showing up, of being present, of attuning to our children's emotional worlds, what if this is actually some of the most important work for healing our world? Because the brains we're shaping in our homes are the brains that will be leading communities tomorrow. The children who learn that they can rest in relationship, that connection is safe, that they're held, these children will grow into adults who can hold others, who can create spaces of safety, who can be instruments of healing in a fractured world. This, this is why I'm excited about doing this work with you. Not just because I want to help parents have easier days, though I do want that for you, but because I believe that every act of genuine presence, every moment of right brain to right brain attunement with your child is contributing to the kind of world we all long to see. Here's what I want to leave you with today. If you don't like who you're becoming as a parent, that awareness is not your enemy. It's actually an invitation. It's telling you that the path you've been on isn't working, and it's asking you to come home to something truer. The next time you're with your child, especially in a hard moment, I want you to remember that there's a conversation happening beneath the words. Your right brain is talking to their right brain. Your emotional state is communicating with their emotional state. And in that invisible exchange, you have the opportunity to offer something more powerful than any technique, any consequence, any reward. You can offer yourself, your presence, your heart. And that, dear listener, is enough. That is actually everything. Because you're not just managing behavior, you're shaping a brain, you're nurturing a soul, you're doing the sacred work of helping a human being learn what it means to be held, to be seen, to be in relationship. And there is no technique that can replace that. There's no program that can substitute for it. There's only you showing up over and over again with all your imperfection, all your love. And that's what it means to be rooted in relationship. And that's how you become the parent you actually want to be. So, Rooted in Relationship, this podcast is brought to you by Inner Life Parent Coaching. If today's episode stirred something in you, if you're feeling that pull toward a different way of showing up with your kids, I want to tell you about something I've created. It's called Your Parenting Practice. It's a coaching and a community container designed around exactly what we've talked about today. The understanding that parenting isn't about mastering techniques, it's about tending to our own presence within the relationship. Your parenting practice gives you the space and the time to actually do that reflecting, to pause, to notice what's happening in you when you're with your children, to grow as the person your child's brain is synchronizing with. Because here's the truth. Most of us don't need more information. We don't. We need space. We need support. We need a community that gets it. That's what your parenting practice is all about. You can learn more and join me at innerlifeparenting.com. I'd love to walk alongside you in this work. If you found this podcast to have value for you, I'd be so grateful if you'd share it with another parent who might need to hear this message. And if you can, leave a review if you found this great, and that helps other parents find this work. So see you next time, and thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work, and until next week, may you find moments today to simply be present with the ones you love.